introduction. Let me know when I can start.
We can start right away, sir.
Okay, ji. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. First of all, my apology for not being present in person in Quetta, but there were flight issues and I could not get there for the time that I needed to be there. I was very keen to visit Quetta, which I haven't for a few years. Have spent some wonderful time there. Still remember my old affiliation with the St. Francis Grammar School and was hoping to come back and visit that. So I've been asked to talk about productivity and, the culture and the innovation and efficiency of productivity. I think efficiency and productivity are interdependent, although our economist friends, and I'm sure there are many of them here, define them separately just to make our world more complicated. And God forbid, I will not claim to be an economist or sort of argue with them on this issue. But efficiency and productivity are interdependent. Innovation is key to sustain and grow productivity. So the three are linked and interdependent. However, the other element, culture, is key to sustained productivity. You can be productive occasionally and you could be productive most of the time. But to have a sustained productivity, you need to adopt the culture of productivity. I'd like to share my experience, the experience in my enterprise of our attempt to achieve this culture of productivity, which could sustain us in this, sustain our productivity. And I'd sort of then take on any questions that you have on where we missed out and how we did this. But let's first look at what are the elements which measure productivity. There's, of course, the most important one, and one which applies to my industry. I run an IT software company, is the labor productivity. And 80% of the total cost of our industry is labor. This labor, this human resource, is our plant and machinery, it's our raw material. And we currently utilize about 85% of the trained and billable resource, which by all measures is a very productive ability to do that. The second part is material. How productively do we use the material? And we don't use much material. For our business, we need space for our human resource, mostly rented, occasionally owned. We need computing equipment, and that doesn't cost so much these days. I think the individual laptop or individual computer which each one of our resources uses costs about $1,000. And of course, we use energy, but energy is about 1.5% of our total expenses. And energy has like a laptop, has a foreign exchange component to it. So, on the basis, and a laptop lasts about 2.5, 3 years with one of our employees. So if I take the total cost of energy and the total cost of his equipment, it comes to about $1,000 a year. And the average billable resource exports $40,000 of services a year. You can't have a more productive use of resource as well as foreign exchange. You look at any other industry, whether it is textile or engineering, just their plant and equipment is a huge percentage of their import. So the net export is far less than what is shown there. And then, of course, they import materials. Today, we even import raw cotton to be able to run our textile industry. And then the final part of measuring productivity is capital productivity. How effectively have you used the capital that is available to you? So, just to give you an example, Systems Limited as a company was set up on a total capital of 500,000 rupees, 5 lakh rupees. which is not to be laughed at because at that time it was worth $50,000. But today the enterprise value as of yesterday's stock price is 130 billion rupees. So by any measure, a very productive use of our capital. So how did this happen? How did we create this ability to be productive? The one factor which ensured this and the one factor which we adopted day one of setting up this company was employee ownership. And employee ownership is what determines employee engagement. It is what is the key to employee empowerment. And it also naturally aligns the employees and the enterprise goals. And these three are the most essential elements of ensuring productive use of capital, materials, and labor of any organization. The level of employee ownership that we practiced, from 100% ownership of the company on day one by the original founders, before taking the company public, it was down to 25%. And after taking the company public, it was down to 16%. And the remaining, there's about 20% with the public, and the remaining is shared by well over 100, 150 employees who are the leaders of the company. So their level of engagement is totally ensured. Their level of empowerment is completely part of our DNA. The employee shareholders of the company, they elect the board members. They who are known to add value to select and to guide the organization. The board selects the CEO and the top leadership who run the enterprise, and the goals are totally aligned. The strong productivity is based on this. We have in the last 10 years, and this is public information because we've been public since then, we've averaged a growth of revenue at 36%, and we've averaged an annual growth in profitability of 40%. Today, the company is the 12th most valuable company on the Pakistan Stock Exchange. And there was one key factor which has taken it to this. Had I and my fellow founder said that we are not going to share the ownership of this company, we're going to keep it 100% to ourselves, this company would have probably run into the ground 30 years ago. Because the bandwidth to run a company of this size, we are about 5,000 people strong today. We hire a lot of people, we create a lot of skilled resources which enter into the market. This year, we have hired about 1,200 people, but over 1,200 people have left us, and they've all left us for greener pastures, for either setting up their own business or, joining others and flourishing. So on the average, we hire about 200 people a month, and this is growing every year. And that by itself requires a productive culture to be able to do this. Now, this can easily be replicated by any organization. The only issue is that it needs a mindset which believes that the control of an organization is not by the ownership of the organization or the percentage of ownership, but it is by your skill. And as long as you are skilled enough to manage that organization, you will manage it, and not because you're 100% owner. You see hundreds of examples of excellent businesses which have been set up in this country in all sectors. but only a handful of those have survived the generation gap. There are some which has done very well, where the next generation has taken over and have surpassed what the previous generation had done, but that's a handful. But if you want to create an organization, an enterprise, which is designed for perpetuity, it is not designed for one owner or one set of owners and for their benefit, but is designed for perpetuity. The whole concept of employee ownership has to be adopted. Otherwise, it doesn't work. This can be just as well adopted by a for-profit organization or for a not-for-profit organization, as long as they empower the employees, they engage their employees, and they give them the ability to lead the remaining employees in this. So it's a model which has worked for us. It has created a culture of productivity, and it has given us the growth and the success and is prime responsibility of it. The question is, how do we create this culture of productivity in the public sector? And here, I fail to be able to give you or this audience any sort of advice or any positive thing on this. What happens in a public sector enterprise? A central authority, normally based in Islamabad, headed by a politically appointed person and advised by an officer of the Central Superior Services, appoint members of the board of that organization, separately appoints the chief executive officer of that organization, and at times also separately appoints the second level of leadership. So each one of these key people in that public enterprise are primarily engaged to that central appointing authority and not necessarily aligned with the goals of the organization. And you see examples of this. You see examples of failures in public enterprise time and again, coming from lack of engagement, lack of empowerment, and lack of the right people put in there based on merit and their ability. If you come out of the public sector and you look at the government sector, in the absence of local government, how do we engage an SHO or a Patwari or a teacher at the primary school level or a doctor to a productive culture if all the decisions are going to be centralized either in the provincial headquarters or in Islamabad? It is just not possible. Now, if there are experts, I'm sure we've heard many of them who think that this is possible, then I don't know of that secret sauce. I'm sure they do, but we haven't seen any result of it being successful in the last 75 years. So as part of the discussion, I would love to hear anybody's comments on how this can be done. So my answer to this is that government should stay away from any industrial or service sector. It should primarily look at its major governance tasks of providing the basic essential services to the people and law and order and justice. And if they can create a productive culture in there, it will be a big challenge, but it will be to the best impact of this country. So I'm not a management scientist, I'm not an economist, but I've shared with you my experience on creating a productive culture, which has resulted in the success of an enterprise, both in terms of its growth, in terms of its profit. Because remember, we are an enterprise which never attracts any loans from banks, because banks don't understand this industry, so they never lend us any money. And thank God we've been debt-free from our inception. So all our growth has been through productive use of our capital and being profitable from day one and being able to reinvest our profits into the company. So if you have any questions on the experience that I've shared with you, I'd love to sort of expand on that and respond to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Azaz. Lovely, very good presentation. All the Balochis here will be very happy to hear that you have a partial Balochi background. Azaz got educated in the grammar school in Quetta, before going to grammar school of Karachi, and then finally coming to Lahore and getting a good education in Lahore. But nevertheless, he's been there. But Azaz, this is great. So please, Baloch students, whoever wants to raise a question, please raise your hands. While you're thinking about raising your hand, let me just ask Azaz a couple of questions. One is, as you said, you are a very labor-intensive company. But you're not just an ordinary labor-intensive company. You hire educated people, and you're looking for talent, basically. What is your experience of finding talent in Pakistan, and how do you actually find talent? The difficulty that we find here, especially in universities and others, our recruitment policies are so flawed, especially in the government sector. We find it very hard to find talent. We have to go through interviews, through advertisements, etc. What is your experience with finding talent, and then how do you train them to be internationally competitive? After all, you are in a direct export business where you have no government subsidy and you have to be internationally competitive. So is that the reason that, for example, you have a large overseas presence, and have you relied more on your overseas presence or the Pakistani presence? So I really want you to focus on the human capital issue.
You know, that's the most important issue for us, Dr. Nadeem. We are all about human capital. It's the raw talent is always available. It's creating the ability to recognize it, to give it the opportunity. And it's also the brand that you create. If the market knows that there is an organization where if I have a talent, I will grow into it. I will grow in that organization. You attract much better quality of people. It's the branding of the organization. For instance, my current CEO is somebody who joined straight from college. He's been running the company for the last 8-10 years. And has done a great job, and he's successful. And he knows that he didn't have to compete against any relative of mine or against a relative of any other founder, that the company was his. He's today the third largest shareholder of the company. Now, the very fact that when he goes out to hire and he tells his story attracts the best talent. So you got to create a brand for yourself. And universities, I don't think, work hard enough on creating that brand, of convincing people that you will come here and you will grow on merit, and we have that brand for you. They have the ability to do so. The second part of your question, it's investment. For the first year that a person spends with us, there is almost no earning from that person. It's an expense, and there's a lot of extra expense of training that person, of polishing that person, of taking him or her to the level where they can compete at an international level. We don't depend on international talent. Even in our target markets, like in the US or Europe or Middle East or Africa, and we are even present in the Asia Pacific region, 90% of the staff that we have there are people who've gone from here. They moved from the parent company. Maybe about 10% of the people who are doing the sales or the account management are locally hired. So people see that, and that creates a brand, and that creates the attraction. But the investment has to be very heavy. So if we are about 6,000 people, less than 4,000 are billed, and they pay for the other 2,000 plus the profit of the company. And you've got to sort of structure it around that. I can't hear you, Nadeem.
Go ahead. इधर आ जाएं जी, ऊपर आ जाएं, आ जाएं, आ जाएं, आ जाएं, आ जाएं, आ जाएं. चले जी.
जी, अस्सलाम वालेकुम. आप
Walaikum
तो
salam.
your whole. My name is Yasir Ashfaq ji. I am CEO of Pakistan Microfinance Investment Company. So one of the comments which was very interesting जो आपने किया कि not for profit entities में तो ownership create कर सकते हैं, but not for profit entities में जो कि इस वक्त हमें बड़ा एक major issue नज़र आता है, because the not for profit entities can't pay dividends और शेयर की अप्रिसिएशन भी कोई नहीं हो सकती उस लिहाज से. तो वहाँ पे कैसे मैं आपसे जानना चाहूँगा, हाउ डू यू what's your opinion of creating ownership? I know motivation and everything is fine, but how do you actually create ownership in a not-for-profit entity? Thank you.
You see, Yasir, it's not just a matter of creating ownership. You've got to engage the employee and you've got to empower them in the decision-making process. That they should know that I matter, that my decisions matter, and I am running this organization or part of this organization. And you know, when somebody is engaged, they are happier in their work, and they're doing something which they enjoy, they will always excel in that work. And when they excel, they're more productive. So it's not simply don't engage or empower an employee by giving them dividends or giving them ownership of the company or raising their value of their asset. You empower them also by aligning their goals. You empower them by making them feel that yes, and they know that if when the time comes, I'll be the next person who will be promoted into the next position. I will be running this organization. I am competing for the leadership of this organization, and it's not going to move to somebody else from outside. So that's the level of engagement which empowers them, and that's when they shine, and that's when they excel, and that's when they're producing.
Can't let you get away without commenting on the state of human capital that you get. You made a pitch that you're getting good human capital and that you train them, etc. So fair enough. But tell us, we've got 260 universities, of which I'm a part too, and we send out, I think, maybe 1 million students into the market every year. How do you rate our university system, and what are your comments on our university system? What should we do if you think our human capital is adequate? That's great, wonderful news. If you think there's changes to be made, what do you think should be done?
Well, human capital is adequate if you're hiring 2,500 people a year. If I was to at 100,000 people, it'll probably will have an adequacy problem. So I am in my comfort zone from that point of view. What the university should do, and I have been, you see, our industry has a natural affiliation and a natural need to collaborate with universities. So we've always sort of extended some hand of collaboration with them. Unfortunately, we don't get the response that we are looking for. For instance, at one of the universities who had invited me to discuss their R&D and their research department and their plans, etc., I proposed that while you send your students to intern in our organization, and the individual student who comes and interns does gain something from that internship of 2 months or 3 months, I would really request that some of the faculty members should come and intern with us. Now, this was initially accepted with horrified response. I mean, what can you teach us faculty? I'm not teaching them anything. I'm just exposing them to what is happening in the market so they can expose the whole class rather than sending 2 people and interns here. I'm also suggesting that because we will learn from them because they bring a theoretical capability behind anything that we do, which gives us the strength. We are sitting in the trenches out there fighting, a war. Some client says, I want this done and I want this done tomorrow. So we come up with the best way that we can do it as quickly as possible, and we have to make money on it. But a theoretically sound person, an academic, sitting at that could give us alternate ways of doing it. So there is a two-way thing here. It's just a mindset that somebody who's become a faculty member thinks that the learning is now behind me. and I can't learn anything from the industry. So I think that level of collaboration, that level of engagement between business, and this applies to every industry, whether it's the chemical industry or the engineering one or the IT industry or agriculture or whatever, there has to be far greater engagement between faculty and the actual practical side of what they're teaching.
Ji, Assalamu alaikum. Raz Sahab, it's a pleasure to listen to you. My name is Khurram Shahzad. Sir, एक छोटी सी investment banking boutique firm run करता हूँ मैं. A sort of entrepreneur, and you look up to people like you who actually, you know, run the information technology landscape of the country. Congratulations, Systems Limited has done, you know, tremendously well over the last few years, and I was luckily involved in the IPO also when I was with this brokerage firm who actually done your IPO. तो सर मेरा सवाल ये है कि जो अभी नदीम साहब ने भी बात की है, I've heard we produce about 30,000 IT graduates every year, and out of those only 5,000 are employable. तो सर अगर 5,000 सिर्फ employable हैं, तो एक तो ये सवाल है कि हम क्या produce कर रहे हैं. Secondly, with this sort of human resource, I mean this scarce human resource, how are we going to become next Infosys of the world and, you know, Reliances of the world? And, you know, if you look at next door India, तो वो तो एक सिंगल कंपनी आपकी $100 billion की है और एक स्टार्टअप वहाँ पे वैल्यू हो रहा है $12 billion. Systems Limited, despite being the top company in Pakistan, has got what market cap is about $600 million. तो सर ये तो बड़ा इम्पेडिमेंट है. इस पर आपने सोचा है कि हम कैसे $600 million से $6 billion कंपनी बन सकते हैं in the next, let's say, a year or two? तो सर ये मेरे कुछ कमेंट्स भी थे और सवाल भी हैं.
गुड क्वेश्चन साहब. इस पर ये भी मैं ऐड कर दूं कि प्लीज टेल अस हाउ डू यू फील competing with India? Since you are the leading edge of our technology sector, we would like to know कि how do you feel about us competing with India, and the fact कि हम dream करते रहते हैं कि हमारी exports भी 100 billion, 50 billion हो जाएंगी IT की. Is that possible?
Khurram, thank you, and Nadeem, you know, we've been flirting or romancing with IT becoming a major source of foreign exchange earner for some years, particularly in Islamabad. The impediment, Khurram, is not the resource. And I'll tell you historically how we handled it, and we will always continue to handle. The impediment is how should I put it? It's the statutory, or it's the regulatory framework in Pakistan. That is the real impediment. I can make a plan for a company to grow to be a $1 billion company in 5 years, like they do in India. But for that, I need a regulatory framework which allows me to go and expand my export services worldwide. As I said, today, we are spending 3% of our total export value on import. A textile company spends, all told, about 30 to 40%. When I go to the state bank and say, look, I'm operating in Europe, I need to buy a company for $20 million, which will enhance the amount of revenue coming to me. I'm buying that revenue. I want to pay them $20 million, and I will double the size of that company because I'll be offering them the back office that I have in Pakistan. The state bank can say, you can't even take a rupee. It has taken me 40 years to finally convince them to allow me to spend 10% of the average of my last 3 years' export for investment abroad. Look at the Indian side. Look at their regulatory framework on this. The Indian equivalent to State Bank, what's it called? Whatever it's called, allows an Indian IT company to invest 4 times their enterprise value, or $1 billion, whichever is less, for investment in their target market without seeking government approval. अगर मैं $100 million की इन्वेस्टमेंट एक्सपोर्ट कर रहा हूं तो मुझे पिछले 3 साल का एवरेज लेके $7 million, $8 million की मुझे इन्वेस्टमेंट की अपॉर्चुनिटी इस वक्त है. अगर मैं 10 पे जाना चाहता हूं तो मुझे इस्लामाबाद नदीम साहब के साथ मिलके वो आपकी जो है एक्निक में जाना पड़ता है, जहां से मुझे कभी आंसर ही नहीं मिल सकता. So these are the impediments. I see Shahid Kardar sitting next to you, and he will bear me out. When we started Systems Limited, and he was one of my pioneers at that time, there was no computer science course in Pakistan. There was not a single college or university which taught computer science. एक होता था इस्लामाबाद यूनिवर्सिटी में, वो 1 साल का मास्टर्स डिग्री देते थे टू पोस्ट ग्रेजुएट डिग्री इन कंप्यूटर साइंस, जिसमें 15 स्टूडेंट होते थे. So we used to create our resources. We used to hire engineers, MBAs, accountants, and we could teach them computers. ये तो आजकल इंडस्ट्री स्पॉइल हो गई है कि वो कहते हैं जी 5,000 एम्प्लॉयबल हैं. All 30,000 are employable if you spend some money and make them billable. So it's wrong to say कि जी सिर्फ 10-15% employable है. All of them are employable. So you just need to invest in them. You need to create that, take them to the level where they can compete internationally. इंडिया में क्या होता रहा है, जब ये शुरू में इंडस्ट्री शुरू हुई थी, the large companies, because they didn't have enough, they would go to an engineering school and take second-year students and tell them, छोड़ दो, degree छोड़ दो. Come and join our institute. We'll spend 6 months teaching you about IT, and you will be immediately employed during that time. So there are ways of overcoming the and resource. आपने अभी आपका एक स्पीकर कह रहा था 75%, आप ही कह रहे थे पूरा 75% of our people are below the age of 35. So we have started a program. We started it primarily aiming at improving our gender ratio. We are asking women who have any degree, and we are saying, come for 6 months into our training program, and we will retrain you into IT. We had 2,000 people applying. हमने 100 बंदा उसमें से लिया because that is our capacity of training there. We will expand this. We are offering this to other universities कि आप हमारे साथ ये program करें. Let's get mid-career people who want to pivot to IT, and let's train them.
ट्रू सर. बस एक मेरा फॉलोअप पॉइंट है. सिस्टम्स ने ऑफ कोर्स आउट ऑफ द वे जाके कुछ अच्छे काम किए इस तरह के जो कि हमारी मार्केट में नहीं हो रहे. वैसे तो ओवरऑल एक अच्छा प्लेटफॉर्म जो है वो क्रिएट किया आप लोगों ने. एक वेंचर कैपिटल का आपका बड़ा अच्छा इनिशिएटिव आया मार्केट में, जिससे आपने वेंचर स्टार्टअप्स में इन्वेस्टमेंट शुरू की. आई थिंक सारी IT कंपनीज़ को, इनफैक्ट सारी कंपनीज़ को ये करना चाहिए कि एक कैपिटल प्रोवाइड करें अर्ली स्टेज कंपनीज़ को, ताकि वो आगे आएँ, बड़ी हों, और फिर आप इवेंचुअली या तो उनको एक्वायर कर लें या फिर आगे लेके जाएं, ये दुनिया में मॉडल्स फॉलो करें. सेकेंडली, आपने अभी जो एक्विजिशंस की हैं, जैसे अभी आपने एक सिंगापुर में आई थिंक कंपनी एक्वायर की है थ्रू योर आई थिंक UAE ऑफिस. सर, तो ये पॉसिबल है ना कि आप ये कर सकें कि आप ओवरसीज़ अपने टू ओवरकम दिस रेगुलेटरी हर्डल, आप या एक्सचेंज फ्लोज का जो इशू है वो तो पूरी इकॉनमी फेस कर रही है ना, आपको पता है सारे इन्वेस्टर्स फेस कर रहे हैं, उसी वजह से हमारे पास इन्वेस्टमेंट नहीं आ रही. तो आप ओवरसीज़ ऑफिस क्रिएट करें और वहाँ से एक्विजिशंस करें और अपना एम्पायर बिल्ड करते हैं, और फिर इवेंचुअली आप जो है वो लोकल मार्केट में. Okay.
Please don't tell State Bank that. That's illegal for me to hold my profits out there. उनको ना बताइए.
No, Izaz, I didn't want to get into it, but Khurram raised a point, and I don't think he realizes कि अगर आपके वहाँ पे भी company है, the revenue generated from there, and if it is not actually transferred back to Pakistan, remitted back to Pakistan, you run into a problem with the State Bank. So hence, even using UAE as the hub to invest somewhere is not that easy and straightforward. So Izaz knows this far better than any one of us, because he's been struggling with it for the last God knows how many years.
And so Khurram, the impediments, and Nadeem, you also, the impediments are primarily the infrastructure. So there's the regulatory framework. There is also lack of, IT industry grows with venture fund. I think you also mentioned this, and one other speaker came on half an hour ago was talking about it. And venture funds are very restricted and very limited here. They are coming in, and that is very encouraging. Private equity भी आ रही है, venture fund भी आ रहा है, but it's in a very limited manner. मैं आपको बताऊं कि systems limited till our recent success in after listing, हमें तो कोई बैंक एक धेला भी नहीं दे सकता, देता ही नहीं था, हमें understand ही नहीं कर सकते कि, because we didn't have any cotton to lend against, we didn't have any machinery to lend against. तो at maximum हमने एक दो दफा कुछ equipment lease कराई है. But our major investment goes into कि जी मैंने expand करना है next year, मुझे 500 बंदा आज hire करना है, उनको 6 महीने train करना है, फिर उनको पख लगा के चलाना है और उसके बाद वो billable होंगे. उसमें कोई there's nobody willing to invest in that.
जी.
Assalamu alaikum, sir. Dr. Nagina from BUITEMS and one of the awardee of PIDE-PSDE project. Sir, first of all, I would like to appreciate your productive session, and I want to ask about one of the major problem of youth job creation. Or as per your own experience, what is your instance about employability? And my question is, what are the reasons of low employability and how can be employability improved? Thank you, sir.
You know, I've just said this, Dr. Nagina, that I don't think that there is that low employability. You just need to invest on those people. And the low employability, the employability can be improved basically by the educational institutions. They are the ones who will ensure, and they can only do this if they can understand what do employers want, what is employable. I go back to this was at a time when education level was very high in Pakistan when I graduated, and it was at a very good college, Lahore College, Foreman Christian College. And my maths teacher, that year they introduced matrix algebra. So मैंने उससे पूछा जी इससे what is this for? So he said, oh, this is part of your maths, don't worry about it. एक ही सवाल आएगा इसमें.
हारून शरीफ साहब को दे. पीछे से कोई बोले जी, पीछे से चाहिए कोई सवाल. ले लो. फ्रंट बेंचेस को मैं इग्नोर. पीछे से आपने.
Assalamu alaikum. I am Usama Jat from University College of BUITEMS. I am the student of 7th semester Management Sciences. सर मेरा सवाल ये है कि अगर कोई स्टूडेंट एंटरप्रेन्योर बनना चाहता है तो ऑनलाइन पेमेंट सिस्टम जो है पाकिस्तान में थोड़ा सा वीक है आई थिंक. जैसे पेपाल हो गया, पेपाल पाकिस्तान में नहीं है अवेलेबल. और हम लोग अगर ऑनलाइन जैसे अमेज़ॉन हो गया या इसी तरह ईबे पे काम करना चाहते हैं तो काफ़ी लोग कहते हैं कि पेपाल आपके पास होगा आई थिंक. तो पेपाल हमारे पास नहीं होता है और इसी तरह से हम लोग फिर अगर दूसरे पेमेंट सिस्टम मतलब अडॉप्ट करते हैं तो हम लोगों को काफ़ी टैक्स देना पड़ता है उस पर. तो इस पर आपका क्या मतलब ख्याल है?
उसामा, देखिए पेमेंट सिस्टम्स तो हैं पाकिस्तान में अभी. आज से 5 साल पहले बिल्कुल नहीं थे, बट अब तो दे हैव देम. पेपैल तो यहाँ पे नहीं आ सकता. we keep asking, but local PayPal एक बन सकता है, and there are plenty of them. आपका ये कहना है कि जी मैं बिजनेस करना चाहता हूँ मगर टैक्स नहीं देना चाहता हूँ, ये मेरी समझ से बाहर है. अगर आप प्रॉफिट बना रहे हैं तो उस पर टैक्स तो देना पड़ेगा और देना भी चाहिए. and you know your success is based on how much tax you're paying. So उससे आपको अवॉइड नहीं करना चाहिए. But I agree with you, इतने ज्यादा नहीं है. बट पेमेंट सिस्टम्स हैं, कुछ ये टेलकोज ने इंट्रोड्यूस किए हुए हैं और बहुत सारे आ रहे हैं मार्केट में. फाइनेंशियल इंक्लूजन इज अ ह्यूज एरिया व्हिच इज अ प्रॉब्लम इन दिस कंट्री. बैंक अकाउंट्स सिर्फ 12-13% ऑफ द पीपल हैव देम. The rest are not part of the whole financial sector of this country. They all deal in a cash economy, which is not good, and they primarily deal in a cash economy because they don't want the tax people to know what they're doing. And that I don't agree with. आप टैक्स एग्जेम्पशन ले लें, आप जो भी बिजनेस कर रहे हैं आप जाएं गवर्नमेंट को कहें कि जी मुझे सर्टेन लेवल पे टैक्स एग्जेम्पशन दें, आप मुझे उसके बाद जाके टैक्स लगाएं, बट टू से कि जी मुझे टैक्स देना ही नहीं है, दैट इज नॉट एक्सेप्टेबल.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Taimur from University of Torbat, 8th semester student of economics department. Sir, my question is, what you suggest the institutes to be more capable of and to improve their students to be more capable and skilled in new globalization era, and what should be the role of the institutes to develop or skill the fifth populated countries to develop their human capital? Thank you, sir.
देखिए, अभी तक गवर्नमेंट के पास तो असल चैलेंज है लिटरेसी को पहले पूरा करने, बिकॉज आप प्रोडक्टिविटी की जब बात करते हैं, the productivity theory says that for every year that you go into school, no matter what you're doing, whether you're digging earth or breaking stones or constructing a building or you're a labor, for every year you go to school, your productivity goes up by 2%. So जो तो college में आप लोग हो वो तो बड़े special हो, you know, in this country that's a very very small percentage. और उनकी productivity बढ़ाने के लिए it's your own effort. No government, no institution. I mean, you got to have this mindset. Ki, I've got to be more productive. What am I going to do? I've got to get a better job. Aajkal productivity is measured by, you know, this. Today they even measure that how many hours do I have to work to earn 1 share of milk or 2 share of ghee. What is my productivity level? कि मैं अगर अपने बच्चों के लिए मैंने 5 किलोग्राम आटा लाना है रोज का, तो मुझे कितने घंटे काम करने पड़ते हैं to earn that 5 kilogram? It has to start from that level. You got to think productively. When you're sitting in a university, you got to think that I'm spending time, I'm paying fees to this university. What am I getting out of this? Your professor has to think that way. ये unfortunately अब ये क्योंकि a lot of them are government organization में वो level of engagement of either the people who they are servicing or the people who are doing that service वो नहीं है, and we have to create that. ये हमारी demand है, ये आपको आके कोई minister या MNA या ये को नहीं करेगा.
Assalamu alaikum, sir. I am from BUITEMS here from economics 3rd semester. Sir, my question is the innovation in physical inputs is enough to maximize the productivity, because we are very lacking in the tangible inputs like the knowledge about those capitals that we have. Is it enough that we to innovate only the physical inputs in our industries?
Well, I don't understand your question. I'm sorry. If you could be a little more.
Physical innovations हो सकती हैं, हम वही कर सकते हैं. We can't do more intellectual digital innovations. वो तो हमारी domain नहीं है.
देखिए, innovation is not about inventing things. Innovation is coming up with the process or a way of doing something more productively or more profitably than the other people are doing it at the moment. Whether it is, you know, supplying building material or growing wheat or anything else, innovation is how you do that. Innovation is how much water do you use to get a higher yield in your crop. That is where innovation comes in. And education is the engine for that innovation. Your ability to read and write, your ability to access information is what you get when you go to a college or a university. Now it is up to you कि उस ability को आप कैसे use करेंगे to create that innovation. Innovation is not just invention. Invention is a totally separate thing. Innovation is that you're doing an activity which others are doing, but you're doing it better. And therefore people will come to you and therefore you will be more successful.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Samiullah Khan. I am faculty member Department of Economics. अक्सर यहाँ पर देखा जाता है हमारी जो कॉमन बिजनेसेस हैं उसमें देखा जाता है कि अगर आपका कोई एम्प्लॉय है वो भी एक मिनी एंटरप्रेन्योर बनना चाहता है, वो भी कोई और बिज़नेस ओपन करना चाहता है, तो उनके जो सीईओज़ होते हैं या उनके जो हेड होते हैं वो उनको बड़े डिस्करेज करते हैं। हालांकि उनको इनकरेज करना चाहिए, इवन अगर वो ज़्यादा प्रोडक्टिव होते हैं तो आपकी कंपनी के लिए बड़ी अजीब कंपटीशन बन जाती है। तो हैज़ अ सीईओ आपका क्या स्टांस होगा, या अगर आपका एम्प्लॉय मज़ीद इसी तरह का एक मिनी बिज़नेस ओपन करना चाहता हो, आप क्या उनको किस तरह इनकरेज कर सकते हैं या आपकी क्या पॉलिसी होगी उस पर? थैंक यू।
देखिए, पहले तो जिस बंदे को मैं अपने शेयर्स देता हूं कंपनी के, वो वैसे ही एंटरप्रेन्योर बन जाता है, he becomes an owner and therefore he runs his part of it. But I tell you, because we were the first software company in this country, out of the next 10, 6 were started by people who left us and started it, and we didn't stop them. Some of them became collaborators, some of them became partners. They also created employment, and we were very rarely competing with each other. So you have to pay. There's a certain role you have to play in the growth of your industry, and you can't hold people back. If somebody is doing it, it can't be effective. Agar aapka koi employee, he has a better way of doing what you're doing. He may have learned from you primarily, and he goes and does it better. All the more power to that person. Usko khareedne ki koshish karo if you want, if you really need it. We have the whole world to compete with, Samiullah Khan Sahab. We don't have to compete with each other.
Azad Sahab, good to see you. Harun Sharif here. Very quickly, I'm spending a lot of time in the region. What I see कि अगले 5 साल में China is going to make a lot of investment in technology. और जो West है उसकी economies जो हैं वो temporarily shrink भी कर रही हैं और उनकी investment levels कम हो रहे हैं. Now Pakistan and China पे सवाल ये है कि are you looking at the Asian markets like China and others in future? If yes, how can, there's a language barrier and other things, one could collaborate with them? क्योंकि investment तो definitely आ रही है, और अगर आप President Xi की 5 points देखें, in fact modernization and technology second and third priority China की बन रही है.
China में जी हमारा ability to compete with the domestic companies there is very low because of the barriers that they have created. Language is not just one barrier. पाकिस्तानी को तो वहाँ विजिट का वीजा नहीं मिलता, टूरिस्ट वीजा नहीं मिलता. I have to go there for a business purpose, otherwise they won't even let me in. हमारे हैं तो deeper than the deepest sea and higher than the highest mountain, दोस्त तो हैं, but वो हमें हमारी एंट्री वहाँ पे बड़ी मुश्किल है. But China has a huge area. We compete with them. We compete with their organizations in the APAC region, in Africa, in Middle East. वो तो है. उनका जो competition West के साथ है, we are too small to get involved in that fight. But उनका competition at a different level है. They draw a lot of strength from the West in terms of knowledge. The West is still, in terms of the investment that they have made in their universities, the investments that they've made in their knowledge centers, is so huge, particularly the US, कि उसके साथ किसी को भी compete करना मुश्किल नहीं है. और US ने उसको बंद नहीं किया होगा. अभी भी हजारों, tens of thousands of Chinese students go to the US, and that's where they learn, and that's the strength of that economy. The difference between them and ours is कि वो वापस आ जाते हैं, they strengthen their economy. हमारे लोग जो हैं वो पाकिस्तान में उनकी belief जरा low है, but अब थोड़ा सा change हो रहा है. वो the concept of वापस्तानी जिसको हम कहते हैं, जो पाकिस्तानी वापस आने शुरू हुए हैं वो थोड़ा encouraging हो रहा है. So whether this because they can't stay on or whether this is the love of this country, but we are having a lot more Pakistanis coming back and contributing to our economy, which will be the real strength.
Azaz, last question.
I just want to make...
You want to say something?
Wait, 2, 3...
Speaks here. He speaks.
No. 2, 3 comments and of course support. I, like Nadeem, are extremely skeptical of what the foundations that we are laying in the universities. I'm obviously encouraged by your perception and your feeling and of course your own experience. KG training ke through the effort and all such people are employable. I wish that were to be true. Partly, of course, the problem is the growth rate of the economy being what it is. Just to reinforce this point about innovation that you said before I come to the last quick one. Innovation, aap bilkul theek keh rahe hain. I mean, at the end of the day, all the ingredients are there. Innovation is what? Agar ek anda pada aur doodh pada ho, so I would probably end up making a scrambled egg, whereas you would make a souffle. So that's the innovation where the value added comes. I'm trying to put it very simply that the ingredients are known and how you use them. What our productivity ki baat kar rahe, and I just want to emphasize on the public sector side, and I suspect Nadeem will agree with me, part of the problem, productivity is much more a marginal concept. हमारे यहाँ जो लोगों की promotion होनी है on the basis of seniority, for them to understand productivity, performance, frankly, I do not know how you do that in the public sector. क्योंकि वो जो आपने बुनियादी बात की कि मुझे नहीं पता कि कैसे होगा, so I keep asking myself, because that's a marginal concept. People are going to be promoted on the basis of seniority. Performance, productivity really doesn't count for anything in that system of the public sector.
That's true, Shahid. That is true. But unfortunately, I personally don't have any answer to that. I mean, other governments have figured it out. One, they stay away from things which require productivity. And second, they have a huge decentralization. Local government is, I think, to my mind, theoretically the only answer to improve productivity of government service.
Question. We're running out of time. Very last question. Quickly, you've talked about the state bank and the impediments that you faced there. If you were, perchance, just asked to define the regulatory system for this country to make it go forward so that we can have the Infosys systems could become the Infosys and we could have billion-dollar companies, contrary to what people think. We economists want you guys to grow. We want to have billion-dollar companies. Yesterday we were talking to Engro. Engro is about the same size as you. So Engro is a 70-year-old company, Daud Hercules, etc. It's the same size as you. Lucky we're having Tabba after you about the same size too. What would you propose the government to do to take Pakistan into the 21st century? But related to that, I also want to throw this on the table. I know time is short. You know all the industrialists in Pakistan. What is stopping them from growing? And especially, I ask you, you've given us a very nice model of employee ownership, of kind of a participatory ownership, professional management, etc. What is stopping our big companies, who you're a member of now, from developing professional management? Because I don't see professional management anywhere in Pakistan.
Well, your second question first, Nadeem. I believe that our inherent feudal DNA, which has been ingrained in us, will never allow us to sort of get out of this mindset, which will allow us to share ownership and have the employee ownership and employee empowerment. Companies die, but they never share they don't even do mergers and acquisitions. So it's a cultural problem. There's no structural issue there. But the first question is the more important one. I mean, this country has to decide, and you economists have to guide us into deciding that are we going to be a free market country or not? Or are we going to be a regulated one and a heavily regulated one? If you're regulated, then you don't have the creations of the Infosys, etc. These organizations are not just big, like IBM and Microsoft. These are organizations in perpetuity. The last Watson to manage IBM, who was the son of the founder, was 75 years ago. There's never been a Watson in the management of IBM. Bill Gates he's not even given 1% of his share to his children, and none of them are in the management of that company. So those are perpetual organizations. Their lack of innovation might kill them, but they will not die because a certain generation has retired or the next generation is not, clear enough. I feel very confident, and I feel that the kind of energy that the second generation of leadership has brought into systems, I could never have done that. Shahid and myself, we were the earlier generation. This industry, this business needs energy, which only people at half my age can provide. And we are managing this company. And I'm hoping that I've ingrained enough of the DNA in them that when they get to my level, they would have passed it on to people half their age.
Thank you. Always a pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, let me also tell you, last year we had, if you recall, Azaz's class fellow, Atiq Raza, and he also gave us a very, very stimulating conversation, except Azaz, he wasn't very upbeat on Pakistan. You are a little more upbeat on Pakistan. And
I'm very upbeat, very upbeat.
Very upbeat, okay. I'll hold you to it, inshallah. Thank you very much, Azaz. This has been a wonderful talk. This is what I expected. I want people to learn about this. Briefly, before you go, how can we help Balochistan? Since you have Baloch roots too, or linkages, how can we help Balochistan?
I don't have Baloch roots as such. I've lived there. I love the place. But I don't want to make a political statement, but the fact that I couldn't get a flight which would bring me back the next day shows the level of integration that Balochistan has with the rest of the country. I can fly to Karachi and come back in the evening. I can fly to Islamabad and come back in the evening. I can do this with Multan also, but I can't do it with Quetta. I suppose the decision makers on this issue have their own planes, so they are not concerned with this. But this is a very clear statement.
Thank you, Azaz. Thank you very much. Inshallah, we'll see you soon. Big hand to Azaz, please.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Khuda Hafiz.
Khuda Hafiz. I think everybody can hear me right. Stay in your seats, please. Nayab has to train you in something quickly. Go ahead.
Not exactly train you. How many of you have downloaded the PSDE app? How many of you are Apple users? लंच थोड़ा लेट हो रहा है, ये अभी लेक्चर है, उसके फ़ौरन बाद लंच होगा. लेकिन उसको कॉम्पनसेट करने के लिए हमने एंड में डिनर रख दिया है, इसलिए प्लीज़ जिन्होंने ऐप भी डाउनलोड नहीं की हुई और वो एप्पल यूज़र्स हैं या नहीं हैं, you don't have to necessarily download the app. इस वक्त मैं ऐप की इसलिए बात कर रही हूँ कि at 3:45 we have a debate and there is a pre-voting and once our panels have said what they wanted to say, a post-voting. I would like कि हम सब बहुत opinions रखते हैं.
ना ऐप कहाँ है? ऐप डाउनलोड अभी करवाएं सबसे. सब ऐप डाउनलोड करें.
ये मैं 2-3 दिन से इसका ट्विटर पे सिर्फ शो कर रही थी.
Get up, make everybody download the app. Come on.
यहाँ से दिखा दें, मंसूर.
यहाँ से भी दिखाएं भाई.
नहीं, इस पे आ जाएगी ना.
Saman, get up.
मंसूर यहाँ से आप दिखाएं कंप्यूटर पे.
You are not here for the lunch, यार. Guys, get up. Saman, Fiza, get up. Fiza, ऐप सबको डाउनलोड करवाएं, चलें.
जितनी देर में वो ऐप कर रहे हैं, आप लोग प्लीज पाइड की वेबसाइट पे
जाएं. समन भी
सिर्फ पीएचडी की अगर आप वेबसाइट पे जाएं तो आपको वहाँ, यार अगर कोई गूगल प्ले पे नहीं जाना चाह रहा, बिकॉज ही इज एन एप्पल यूजर, राइट? आई मीन ऐप इज नॉट फॉर एप्पल यूजर्स. He is an Apple user like you. That's what I'm trying to tell you. यार उस पे दिखाएं ना, कंप्यूटर पे दिखाएं. No. I think accessing through website is much easier. Those who haven't downloaded the app yet, please go to the PSDE website. Please. यार हमें अपनी ओपिनियन सुनाने का शौक होता है, इस वक्त आपकी ओपिनियन एग्जैक्टली काउंट होगी. यार न्यूटन्स वालों नेट दो.
वाईफाई के लिए आप पाइड का जो वाईफाई है उसको क्लिक करें और पाइड 1 का पासवर्ड दें तो वो कनेक्ट हो जाएगा.
हमने पासवर्ड भी अपना चले. ओके जी, पाइड ने अपना इंटरनेट भी जाना शुरू कर दिया है. जस्ट गो टू द पाइड वाईफाई ऐप. अब जिन्होंने नहीं की भी उस पर मत जाए, इसमें टाइम लगेगा. फॉर नाउ जस्ट गो टू द PSDE वेबसाइट. मंसूर ये PSD की वेबसाइट दिखाएं. PSD की वेबसाइट दिखाएं. बस खत्म कर रहे हैं. बस अभी शुरू करना है ना, अभी शुरू करना है ना, बस ठीक है. मैं एक मिनट बाथरूम से जल्दी से ओके. इवन जिन्होंने एप्लीकेशन नहीं भी डाउनलोड की हुई, या एप्लीकेशन में टाइम लगेगा ना, फॉरगेट अबाउट एप्लीकेशन राइट नाउ. आई जस्ट वांट पीपल टू वोट. उधर जाएं वापस, वो दिखाएं टैब वाला डिबेट्स का टैब. जी ओके ओके. यार उनको आने को दो ना, मैं नहीं करवाऊंगी, मुझसे करवाना होगा. आने तो यार उनको नहीं. एक पीछे, एक पीछे. बस ये अगर आप लोग देखें तो राइट बॉटम पे डिबेट्स की टैब है. वंस द डिबेट बिगिंस, आप जब इसको क्लिक करेंगे, क्लिक करें. यार ऊपर ना जाए, क्लिक करें. Here, you just click question 1 pre-debate and you can vote. एक दफ़ा जब आप अपना वोट सबमिट कर देंगे तो इट्स गॉन. उसको आप चेंज नहीं कर सकते. और प्लीज़ एवरीवन ट्राई टू वोट. किसी को कोई कंफ्यूजन है तो प्लीज़ अभी पूछ लें. आप PSD की वेबसाइट पर चले जाएं. जिसको ऐप डिफिकल्ट लग रही है, जस्ट गो टू द PSD वेबसाइट. इट्स सर्विंग द पर्पस. You can't vote right now because Abbas was doing pre-poll rigging. So nobody can vote right now and all the polled votes are deleted. It would open once the session begins. बस ठीक है. नहीं. ओके जी. खाना नहीं अभी अभी. आज ठीक हो गया. यस.
Taba Saab is online. Ji, do we have Taba Saab or not? Hello? Are you online? Hello, can we hear you, Tabasab?
You can hear me.
You're here? Okay, good, lovely. Let's begin. Challenge Rafi sir.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum, everybody, and welcome to all. My name is Raja Rafiola. I am a research fellow at Pakistan Institute of Development Economics. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all to the second special invited lecture of the conference. The title of the lecture is the Conglomerates and Their Contribution to the Economy. Our special guest for the session is Mr. Mohammad Ali Tabba Saab. Mr. Mohammad Ali Tabba is the Chief Executive of Lucky Cement Limited. Mr. Tabba also served as the Chairman of Yunus Textile Mills Limited, a state-of-the-art home textiles mill with subsidiaries in North America and Europe. He is also the Chairman of Lucky Motors Corporation and Lucky Electric Power Company Limited. He is also the Chairman of Pakistan Textile Council and All Pakistan Cement Manufacturing Association. Mr. Tabba has extensive engagements in many community welfare projects and serves as on the boards of governors of renowned universities. He is also the Vice Chairman of the non-profit organization Aziz Tabba Foundation. In recognition of his services to the social development sector, he was named as a young global leader by the World Economic Forum in 2010. Furthermore, in 2012-13, he also received the Businessman of the Year award from the Karachi Chamber of Commerce and Industry. With this done, I would like to welcome Mr. Tabba Saab and hand over the moderation of the session to Vice Chancellor PIDE, Dr. Nadeem Ul-Haq.
Welcome to the PIDE conference in BUITEMS. BUITEMS और बलूचिस्तान के students यहाँ बैठे हैं, professors बैठे हैं. So we would very much like to hear from you, your vision for your industry. You're one of the biggest industrialists in Pakistan. Your vision for your industry and Pakistan. When will our exports grow to $100 billion? When will your industry compete with Infosys? आपसे पहले हमने भी एजाज हुसैन से बात की, उससे भी सवाल पूछा है कि हमारी कंपनीज कब $10 billion की होंगी, हमारी कंपनीज कब एक्सपोर्ट्स करेंगी, कब आपके दफ्तर होंगे अफ्रीका में, अर्जेंटीना में, वगैरह वगैरह. So Tabba Saab, over to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nadeem Ul-Haq Sahab, Vice Chancellor. Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. बड़ा तवील सवाल है आपका, but इससे पहले, हम जवाब में जाते हैं. I think we should analyze, what's happening in our country today. We all know that today, we have political uncertainty, economic slowdown, and this certainty is not good for our country, and we really need to put our minds together to see how we can overcome the current crisis. How did we land up in this situation? My personal belief is that because of poor policy making in the past, corruption, blunders, I think this has compounded, over the years, and that's where we are today. So I call it, that Pakistan today is at a crossroad. We have been living as a country, beyond our means for many decades. And our source of foreign income, has primarily been export, which has not been growing very fast. Workers' remittance, foreign aid, multilateral loans, And if you've been bridging your import needs, through these means, so it means that the government really didn't put enough focus on exports, which has translated into a short-term mindset, for trading activities, import something, distribute, don't pay taxes, and make profit, Then, of course, it's all being done because of a poor taxation policy, And more than the policy, I think, is implementation also. So I'm not saying that the policy doesn't exist. Policy does exist. But at the same time, the implementation is rather very weak, And why I say it's weak, because over the years, since early 80s, we haven't been able to overcome our smuggling problem, We haven't been able to overcome our under-invoicing and misdeclaration problem. Since the Afghan transit trade, started, that was the beginning of the end of the industrialization in Pakistan. because if you are able to import freely, without paying any proper taxes, then of course don't pay any income tax because you are easily able to conceal your income, by under invoicing and misdeclaration. So all that, has happened, over the last many years, which has created a mindset in Pakistan in general that businesses should get involved in businesses, which is either rent seeking or it's in short-term nature where you are able to make a good return in short period of time without making any solid investment on the ground, which is basically for long-term sustainable, for long-term industrialization. So I would say after nationalization, I think which happened in 1974, the large businesses or conglomerates, lost confidence in the country. And this phenomena even exists today. In Pakistan, it's a security state and a political economy. Unless we don't get away with this mindset and start reforming our economy to market-based economy, which means the decision that has to be taken by the political party or the government in power at that particular time, they have to see what's happening around the world and what needs to be done, what doesn't need to be done. If you're going to keep subsidizing, everyone, whether it's industry, whether it's population, whether it's rich or middle class or whatsoever, we will never be able to grow, our economy in Pakistan. So for growth to happen on a sustainable basis, I think which is the need of the hour, the rules of the game must change, Unless we don't change our way of business and the way the decisions are being taken in Islamabad, I think we're not going to come out of this conundrum, which we are facing for the last many years. We all know the problems, I'm just going to repeat, what problems are we facing today. First of all, energy is the biggest challenge, not just on our budget, but also, the affordability by the people, and why I say people, because if a country has a per capita income of around $1,500 or $1,400, and you produce electricity at a cost which is not affordable, there will be, unreceivables, which will not be collected by the discos. Of course, we have huge inefficiencies on transmission and distribution network that needs to be addressed. Second biggest challenge is agriculture. I think because, as we all say, that when you give subsidies, you make that particular sector inefficient, and that's what has been happening in agriculture for the last so many years, that because being subsidized heavily, I think there has been no major modernization in our farm practices, So I'm sure we're still using the same technique and the same method, which we've been using for the last so many years, like 40, 50 years. So unless you don't bring in those efficiencies and we don't improve our yield, and with a growing population, food security is a must in Pakistan. Today, one of the reasons for high inflation is because we are not producing enough. So we have to import wheat, we have to import all our basic necessities such as lentils, At times we also have to import our vegetables and fresh fruits, So all that which is possible to grow in Pakistan, we have not been able to do that. Then is the privatization. The state-owned enterprises inefficiencies are known to all of us. It's not something that is not known, right? So government is not to be in a position to run businesses, Government situation should be to regulate the businesses. And what we have seen in the past, that the state-owned organization is losing money, and again is such a big burden on our budget, that we're not able to meet other requirements, So you're basically spending money, to run those organizations, which will never be a profit-making organizations. So privatization is a must. Taxation. I think the biggest challenge, in Pakistan is a taxation. Look at the number of filers, we have in Pakistan. How many people pay direct taxes? the taxation rate in Pakistan is so high, that you are not able to attract foreign direct investment in real sectors such as exports, such as manufacturing. And the reason being is, because if your corporate tax rate and other taxes are higher than in the region, which offers better incentives, for the foreign investor, why the investment would come in Pakistan. So the investment does not come in Pakistan in sectors we want. They come and take the advantage of our demographics, right? So they take the advantage of our population, and most of the direct investment either we have seen is in oil and gas sector, which has a fixed return. It's independent power projects again, which has a fixed return, or it's in FMCG, fast-moving consumer goods, where people has taken the advantage of our large population, and nothing has been done, by those organizations to even export from Pakistan. Being present in Pakistan for last so many decades, no effort has been done. The next topic is, of course, industrialization and exports. Because we don't have a large-scale industrialization, which has happened in the country after the nationalization, I think that has depleted our efficiencies, that has depleted our risk appetite. And because of that, we are dependent, only on few sectors, which are earning foreign exchange for the country. And we all know, textile is number one, followed by rice and other commodities. IT is now growing, but this is not something that we're going to take the Pakistan, out of the crisis in which we are today. IT and service export, I remember very well 2 years ago, or maybe, when I started, when I was given a task of how we can revive industry and exports in Pakistan by the previous government, So when I started dissecting, sector by sector, I saw that there is so much of anomaly in our taxation, that if export of goods was subject to 1% or 1.25% withholding tax on revenue, service export, was attracting 29% corporate tax. So why would somebody, want to make an effort to export services out of the country and pay 29% tax, where other sectors, were paying only 1%. So on the recommendation, we have been successfully able to bring IT. I think today it's more or less at zero. Service export, I think, is at 1%. So we need to push, the capacity and capability of what we can harness in short term. Long term, medium to long term needs a lot of investment, and I will talk about that later. So if we can harness in short-term gains, even if we add gains, from existing sectors, I think if you really make a very good effort, maybe by 2025, I would say, that our exports can grow maybe up to maybe $40 billion. Then the biggest opportunity lies in our mining sector. I'm sure you all must be reading in the newspaper, that the Supreme Court is having this case on Recodic, and try to understand, how we can resolve this issue going forward, so we can bring in a large FDI, in this country and start exploring into mining, And because you guys are in Quetta today, I think Balochistan is a God-gifted province, It has got so many resources, natural resources, that not a single resources has been properly explored. And whatever small mining which is being done, in coal mining or chrome mining, but there's also not a large-scale mining. It's being done on a very small SME basis, because mining needs very large investment, and without making proper investment, you can't really achieve economies of scale. And if you cannot achieve economies of scale, you cannot bring the cost of product down, So for them to unleash this great potential, because after 18th Amendment, all the rights have been devolved to the province, and some of the province, actually lack capacity, and because of that capacity lacking, they are not able to formulate policies that can attract major investment, And I work personally, at Recodic. Today Recodic problem has been solved because of the initiative of the private sector, which was led by me personally. And we brought in all the foreign investors, which was Barrigold and Antofagasta, and the government of Pakistan, because those two foreign companies did not trust the mechanism and the government, because the prolonged court decisions, and the entire project was at halt, and there was a major liability hanging on Pakistan, which was $6 billion. So we made that effort, to bring everyone together. We hired the international experts, and we ensured that we come to a very reasonable, solution and the penalty. Although we're not in the forefront, because we were asked not to come in the forefront, and we wanted this problem to be resolved between the government, establishment, provincial government, so at least we can get out of this issue for once and all. I hope Supreme Court sense will prevail, and we will be able to make a good breakthrough, And once we start unleashing this sector, trust me, Balochistan can alone, let's say if we take a horizon of 5 to 10 years, can easily export $15 to $20 billion of mines and minerals from that province alone. What will happen, it's going to help to resolve the pressing issues of unemployment, bringing the province at par with other provinces in the country, and all the grievances, which the people of Balochistan has. I think we will be able to address that, in a very short span of time. The other great potential, of course, in Balochistan is agriculture. We as corporate trying to experiment on corporate farming, especially in cotton, so that we can start unleashing the potential of agriculture also in Balochistan. And as we all know, that the land is very fertile and virgin. And if we do proper, if we can procure seeds, and we can adopt modern farming practice, and if the law and order is good, I think this province can again become very big in the agriculture side. If you look at media, or you look at newspaper, there's always a blame game going on. The private sector is a rent-seeking sector. I don't deny that. Why it has become a rent-seeking sector is because, as mentioned in my earlier conversation, is a government policy. If you don't give a level playing field across different sectors, businessmen or the entrepreneur will going to adopt a easy route in which they are able to make better returns than running a industry, and where they can, where they don't pay or liable to pay taxes, land holding, parking assets in unproductive areas, So once you give that kind of environment, nobody would like to make an effort. And that's what we are lacking today in the country. But at the same time, private sector is the solution to our problems. Whether we like it or not, unless we don't harness the potential of the private sector, we're not going to unleash the potential of this country. So what since I got involved in different areas, working with governments, different organizations, I realized there is so much of trust deficit, between the government, the regulator, and the sector. So then I thought, what would be the best way to overcome this the deficit, And I personally believe that public-private partnership model is the way forward for Pakistan. Today, we need to set up large industries. We need to privatize all our assets, including discos, power generation, railway, steel mill, and airlines or whatever we have, because those sectors cannot run in today's world under the government ministerial framework, because world has changed, decision needs to be taken, on a very prompt basis, and as per the rules and regulation of the government, these organizations are not feasible, to be led by the government itself. So when you talk about industrialization, export potential, so we really need to start setting up large-scale industries. We don't need small industries, $100, $200 million. No, today we need investment of $4 billion, $5 billion, $8 billion, $10 billion per industry. I talked about mining. It's a great beginning. Hopefully, it will harness good results for the country if provided, given the right environment, given to those foreign companies, that will have confidence, and through that confidence, you will be able to attract many more other companies in Pakistan. Petrochemical complex, which includes top, modern refinery along with naphtha cracker. This project was conceived in Pakistan in early 70s, that we need a naphtha cracker, so we can start going into petrochemicals, because today, whatever you use, there's plastic, there is resin, there are other chemicals, which you all need to import. And since 75 or early 80s, we've not been able to attract that investment and put that into reality. And the reason being is that because of the government issues, and I would also say political victimization, and political victimization is not just against people, media, whatsoever. I think this political victimization also happens to large businesses today in Pakistan also. So government doesn't like private companies to flourish. That's also a major challenge in Pakistan, whether we accept or we don't accept. Because of that, I think people then shy away, they don't want to come in forefront and make an effort, because if you are not welcome in your own country, and you have so many hurdles and hiccups and people trying to block your way, so why would private sector, come in a big way and invest and take risk, in Pakistan? That's why I say that public-private partnership is the way forward. So we need to set up immediately large-scale mining. We need to set up petrochemical complex. We need to undertake large steel mill, because again, steel today is a basic necessity. And any industry, whether it's white goods, cars, industry, construction, all need steel, and only product which we make in steel, products we make in Pakistan is these cold rolls, which are used for the white goods such as refrigerator and air conditioning. But also the raw material of that cold roll is being imported, So there's no hot roll industry in Pakistan which provides the basic raw material. And same goes for other industry. So we need to start harnessing, this model of partnership and start undertaking projects which is of world-class scale, and start putting resources, policy, start attracting FDIs, so we can start unleashing that. Unless we don't do that, I think the dream to achieve $100 billion export is going to be our dream only. We will never be able to achieve that in reality. Now, you see, as I said earlier, Dr. Saab, जब तक कि आप एक कंडक्टिव इन्वायरमेंट क्रिएट नहीं करेंगे ना, और आप ये टैक्सेशन की पॉलिसी को रिमैप नहीं करेंगे, डोंट एक्सपेक्ट कि पाकिस्तान के अंदर आपको बहुत बड़ी एफडीआई या कोई बहुत बड़ी इंडस्ट्रियल इन्वेस्टमेंट मिलेगी. और इन सब का रूट कॉज यही है कि हमारी जो गवर्नमेंट आती है पावर में, वो एक 5 साल के विजन से आती है, और उस 5 साल की विजन में वो 2 साल तो या 3 साल वही कहती है कि पिछली गवर्नमेंट के जो मसले मसाइल थे हमने उसको हल करें, और उसके बाद फिर वो जो 1 साल 2 साल रह जाता है इलेक्शन से पहले, उस पर वो अपने पैडल को दबाते हैं कि ग्रोथ को किसी तरीके से लेके जाएं ताकि अगले इलेक्शन में जीतने की तैयारी की जाए. और जब वो पैडल दबाते हैं ग्रोथ का, उससे आपकी इंपोर्ट बढ़ जाती है, और आपका जो करंट अकाउंट डेफिसिट है वो आपका हाथ से निकलता था, जिसकी वजह से आपको बाहर से डेट लेना पड़ता है. बट इस चीज़ का अफसोस भी है, बट इस चीज़ की मुझे खुशी भी है कि आज हम इस पॉइंट पे आ चुके हैं कि अगर हमने रियलाइज नहीं किया, एक तो आपकी बॉलिंग कैपेसिटी अब लिमिट होती जा रही है। इसका मतलब यह कि आज से आपने जो रहना है वो अपने मीन्स के अंदर रहना है। जो आप फॉरेन एक्सचेंज कमा रहे हैं उतना ही आप खर्च कर सकते हैं। आपकी कैपेसिटी नहीं है कि आज आप पाकिस्तान में कोई बहुत लार्ज स्केल आप बोरिंग कर सकते हैं, बिकॉज जो पिछले लोन्स हैं उसको देने के लिए आपके पास पैसे नहीं है। उसके लिए आप री रोलिंग की बात कर रहे हैं, उसके लिए आप नए कर्जे लेके पुराने कर्जे उतार रहे होते हैं। तो जब तक कि आप अपनी इस एरिया को ठीक नहीं करेंगे और अपने आप को अब उस सिचुएशन में लेके वो फैसले नहीं करेंगे कि भाई अब हमारे पास वो फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी नहीं है जो थी हमारे पास। जब थी हमारे पास वो हमने सारे पैसे इंपोर्ट करके और लग्जरी चीज़ों में और गैर जरूरी चीज़ों में हमने इंपोर्ट करके वो पैसे ज़ाया कर दिया। पीएमएलएन की पिछली गवर्नमेंट ने $18 बिलियन का करंट अकाउंट डेफिसिट छोड़ के गए, और पीटीआई की जो गवर्नमेंट अभी जो पिछले साल इस साल जो जून में जब गई, इससे पहले वो भी 18 बिलियन डॉलर का करंट अकाउंट डेफिसिट छोड़ के गए। क्या पाकिस्तान जैसे मुल्क में जिसमें आपकी टोटल इनवर्ड फॉरेन एक्सचेंज ही तकरीबन 60 से 65 बिलियन है और आप 20 बिलियन का आप करंट अकाउंट खसारा छोड़ के जाएंगे, कोई हुकूमत आएगी या कोई भी गवर्नमेंट पावर में आएगी वो चीज़ तो संभाल ही नहीं सकती। दूसरा मसला ये है कि आपकी जब करंट अकाउंट डेफिसिट बढ़ता है तो फिर आप अपनी इकोनॉमी को स्लो करते हैं। उससे क्या है, उससे आपकी अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट बढ़ती है, उससे इस मरतबा जो कमोडिटी की सुपर साइकिल दुनिया में आई है बिकॉज ऑफ वेरियस रीजन, जिसमें रशिया यूक्रेन की वॉर भी है, बाकी सिचुएशन भी जिसमें ऑयल की प्राइसेस भी आपकी बढ़ गई हैं, तो उसमें आपने देखा कि पाकिस्तान की सस्टेनेबिलिटी है नहीं। नॉट अ गोइंग कंसर्न, एवरीबडी सेज दैट वी नॉट अ गोइंग कंसर्न। आप तो आपका बजट कर्जे से स्टार्ट होता है, कर्जे पे खत्म होता है। आपका जो आपकी जो फिस्कल डेफिसिट है वो भी इसी तरीके से कि आप के जो टैक्स रेवेन्यूज हैं वो इतने हैं ही नहीं कि आप आपकी सारी रिक्वायरमेंट पूरी कर सके। तो आपका जो बजट जो स्टार्ट करते हैं वो भी आप सारे से शूट कर रहे होते हैं। तो इसका मतलब ये है कि आपने टैक्सेशन को और टैक्सेशन पॉलिसी को इतना रोबस्ट करना होगा और इतना स्ट्रेंथन करना होगा कि लोगों को टैक्सेस देने होंगे। आप सेक्टर्स को एग्जाम नहीं कर सकते, कि आपने एग्रीकल्चर को एग्जाम कर दिया। आप एग्रीकल्चर को अगर आप फार्मर को एग्जाम करते हैं, बट फार्म से लेकर मार्केट तक जो मिडिल मैन जो पैसे कमा रहा होता है उस पर तो आप टैक्सेशन लगाए, उस पर आप क्यों टैक्सेशन नहीं लगा रहे हैं? रियल एस्टेट सेक्टर पे आप क्यों टैक्सेशन आपकी सही नहीं है? सर्विस सेक्टर में आपने 17% का जीएसटी लगाया हुआ है। हर आदमी चाहता है कि उसको अवॉइड करे, कोई चाहते ही नहीं कि उसे कंप्लाई करे, बिकॉज 17% in a country where the population lives below poverty, 40-50%, वो कैसे 17% टैक्स दे सकता है? मतलब उसके पास तो कैपेसिटी नहीं है। जब भी वो पैरेलल इकोनॉमी का कॉन्सेप्ट जो है वो आपका ग्रो कर रहा है पाकिस्तान में, कि एक चीज जो एक रेगुलेटेड सेक्टर में एक चीज बिकती है 50 रुपए की, वही चीज अनरेगुलेटेड सेक्टर में मे भी 30 रुपए की बिक रही है, बिकॉज वो टैक्स नहीं देते, जीएसटी वो इनकम टैक्स नहीं देते, बाकी टैक्सेस नहीं देते। तो आपने वो एक तरफ इतनी लॉपसाइडेड टैक्सेशन क्रिएट करके आपने इतना अनफेवरेबल एनवायरनमेंट क्रिएट कर दिया है, जिससे आप जो इन्वेस्टर्स हैं उनके लिए आपने मसले कर दिए। तो अगर आपने इन सब मसलों से निकलना है तो आपने टैक्सेशन को एक प्रॉपर तरीके से आपने अडॉप्ट करना होगा। कोई भी आदमी इनकम करो, सही है, आप एक सर्टेन सेक्टर और स्लैब तक आप इनकम टैक्स एग्जाम्पशन दे सकते हैं, बट जो बड़े सेक्टर्स हैं, रियल एस्टेट है, एग्रीकल्चर है, बाकी सर्विस इंडस्ट्रीज है, मतलब आपको पता है कि पाकिस्तान के अंदर मैन्युफैक्चरिंग का जो जीडीपी का जो कंट्रीब्यूशन है वो 18-20% है, और उसका जो टैक्सेशन की जो जो जो, जो उस पर टैक्सेस हैं सारे मिला के 50-55% की जो गवर्नमेंट को जो टैक्सेशन मिलती है वो इस सेक्टर से मिलती है, जिसका 20% कंट्रीब्यूशन है। एग्रीकल्चर है आपका, उसमें आपको 1% मिलती है। सर्विस आपका 18 से 20% का कंट्रीब्यूशन है, उसमें 2 से 3% आपको टैक्सेशन मिलती है। हर आदमी टैक्स अवॉइड कर रहा है, चाहे वो डॉक्टर हो, चाहे वो लॉयर हो, चाहे वो केटरिंग वाला हो, चाहे वो सलून वाला हो, या कोई और बाकी सर्विसेज कर रहा हो। किसी आदमी ने प्रॉपर टैक्सेस जमा ही नहीं कराने होते हैं, बिकॉज आपकी टैक्सेशन इतनी ज्यादा है कि वो टैक्स अवॉइडेंस की तरफ जाते हैं रादर देन कि टैक्स कंप्लायंस की तरफ जाते हैं। तो मेरे ख्याल में अब जिस हम क्रॉस रोड पे खड़े हैं, जो मैंने पहले भी तस्करा किया था, उस क्रॉस रोड से निकलने का एक ही हल है कि हम अपने आप को ठीक करना शुरू करें और इस चीज़ को हम एक्सेप्ट कर लें कि जिस तरीके से हम मुल्क चला रहे थे हम इस तरीके से मुल्क नहीं चला सकते, और अगर इसी तरीके से चलाते रहे तो आप इस मरतबा से दिवालिये से बच जाएंगे, आप बाहर से कर्जे भी ले लेंगे, आप अपने दोस्तों से अपने लोन को भी रीप्रोफाइल या रीशेड्यूल करा लेंगे, बट इस तरीके से मुल्क नहीं चलते। अगर आपने अपने पैरों पे खड़ा होना है तो आपने जो आज की हकीकत है उसको अपनाना होगा, उसको अगर आप नहीं अपनाएंगे तो फिर इस मुल्क ऐसे ही चलता रहेगा जैसा पिछले साल से चल रहा है।
Very much. I think you made some excellent points. जी बिल्कुल ठीक है. I believe you got 15 minutes for question and answer. Is that right? Sorry, तो बस अब आवाज आ रही है मेरी?
जी आ रही है।
अच्छा, मैंने कहा 15 मिनट है ना आपके पास सवाल जवाब के लिए?
जी 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 बिल्कुल।
अच्छा ठीक है जी। अच्छा जी, जब बस अब लेट मी बिगिन एंड लोगों को मैं प्लीज़ हाथ खड़ा करना शुरू कर दे। वेलकम टू यू गंजालो, जो भी खड़ा करना चाहते करें, बट लेट मी आस्क अ क्विक फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन। जब सब you mashallah one of the biggest businessmen in Pakistan, very successful, very well known, etc. And we just had a new sort of rising business star Azaz Hussain too. So I want to ask you this question. आपने बड़ी अच्छी बात की कि हम we need a change in our tax policy, our regulatory policy, and we need to get rid of rent seeking, and we need to develop a competitive environment. And I think this is music to our ears. This is an economist session. या माशाल्लाह BUITEMS के स्टूडेंट्स बैठे हैं, फैकल्टी भी बैठी है, बलोचिस्तान यूनिवर्सिटीज़ के और भी लोग हैं वगैरह। तो आपसे मैं एक छोटी सी सवाल पूछना चाहता हूँ, दो सवाल छोटे से मिक्स टुगेदर। वन इज़ कि पीपल लाइक यू हैव अ सीट एट द बिजनेस टेबल, जब द पॉलिसी टेबल आई वुड से, whenever there's a meeting in the finance ministry, and I used to be there for 3 years, there are always businessmen like yourself there. PBC gets front seat and the businessmen get a front seat, and mashallah you are always making policies. तो हमारी जो conference है, conference is the charter of the economy. Can the businessmen put forward a charter of economy? Can you people get together and tell the government that you want a competitive environment and collectively agree okay, we want a competitive environment, we are willing to bring down the regulatory barriers, we are willing to bring down the SROs, we are willing to bring down all the various things, and we'll all learn to sink and swim together and take the bullet by the horn, or the bull by the horn. Is that something that is possible? हो सकता है कि बिजनेसमैन एक चार्टर ऑफ इकोनॉमी पेश करते हैं कि हम जी तैयार हैं सब्सिडी ख़त्म करने को, हम तैयार हैं मरने या जीने को एक कम्पिटिटिव एनवायरनमेंट में, क्या ये हो सकता है? और फिर टैक्सेशन पे भी सिमिलर थिंग कि इफ़ यू डू दैट देन वी कैन ऑल्सो एड्रेस दी, बिकॉज इस वक्त जो हमें हर्डल लग रहा है, सबसे बड़ा हर्डल ये है कि रेंट सीकिंग एनवायरनमेंट किसी चीज़ को ख़त्म नहीं होने दे रही। तो बताइए क्या ख्याल है इस पर?
देखिए डॉक्टर साहब, आप सही कह रहे हैं कि देखिए हम जब टेबल पे बैठते हैं तो हमारी तो एक पॉलिसी रिकमेंडेशन होती है, डिसीजन मेकिंग तो गवर्नमेंट के पास होती है, और आपको मैंने बताया कि जो भी गवर्नमेंट पावर में आती है वो एक 5 साल के लिए आती है, उनका एक अपना एक शॉर्ट टर्म विजन होता है, और उस विजन में वो बहुत सारी पॉलिसी रिकमेंडेशन को इम्प्लीमेंट भी नहीं करते। आपने सही कहा कि एक चार्टर इकोनॉमी होनी चाहिए, या एक चार्टर ऑफ economy which needs to be agreed by all stakeholders, और जब मैं stakeholders की बात करता हूँ तो उसमें सारे होंगे, आपकी establishment भी होगी, गवर्नमेंट भी होगी, मीडिया भी होगा, जुडिशरी भी होगी और नैब भी होगी, बिकॉज आपको पता है कि इस मुल्क में कानून इतने मुश्किल हैं कि जिसको चोरी करनी है तो करके निकल जाता है, लेकिन जो काम कर रहा होता है वही एट द एंड ऑफ द डे आप पाकिस्तान में आके फंसता है यहाँ पे। और सारे businesses don't think that way, हर आदमी और हर इंसान की अपनी एक personality और अपना एक vision है, and the way I interacted also with businesses in Pakistan, as I said कि rent seeking culture has become the part of our game now, और उसको कभी भी बिजनेस कम्युनिटी जो है वो चैलेंज नहीं करेगी, वो तो गवर्नमेंट को समझना है कि यार आपने जो एनवायरनमेंट क्रिएट किया है जिससे रेंट सीकिंग कल्चर डेवलप हो गया है, and nobody want to let go of that rent seeking culture, so the policy which the government has to design that will actually going to force people to get out of that comfort zone and rent seeking culture and start competing in the real world, और वो सिर्फ पॉलिसी के थ्रू आ सकता है, वो बिजनेसमैन की रिकमेंडेशन से नहीं आता, बिकॉज उनका भी वेस्टेड इंटरेस्ट है पाकिस्तान के अंदर।
की बात आपसे पूछ लूँ बिफोर वी गो, कल yesterday we had a talk by a Nobel Prize winner, Michael Spence. उसने अपनी टॉक में, बड़ी अच्छी टॉक थी, वेरी गुड टॉक, बट ही सेड समथिंग वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट विच आई वांट टू ब्रिंग टू द टेबल टू यू. यू टॉक्ड अबाउट अ लॉट ऑफ थिंग्स लाइक यू नो हमने टेक्सटाइल में कुछ करें, एग्रीकल्चर में करें, यू नो वगैरह वगैरह. वी वर टॉकिंग स्टिल ऑफ द फिजिकल इंडस्ट्री. एंड आप जो सारे इंडस्ट्रीज हमारे यहाँ माशाल्लाह ज़्यादातर कमोडिटी प्रोड्यूसिंग इंडस्ट्रीज़ हैं. मोस्ट ऑफ यू जस्ट कमोडिटी, सीमेंट हो गया, you know, processed sugar ho gaya, ya whatever, you know, energy ho gayi. So it's a commodity production business. But Michael Spence yesterday, and we all know that, was emphasizing the new age of digitization and the new age of robotics and how we are moving towards a very different world. तो हमारा जो कल्चर अभी तक है कि हम मशीनरी इंपोर्ट करके बिजनेस चलाएंगे, मेक कमोडिटीज़. How are you prepared for that? Are you ready to change and move into the digital world? I mean, I'm speaking to you now as leading businessman in आपके business community. How are you positioning yourself for the new digital world?
देखिए, digitization definitely is the need of the hour, but I think जब तक कि आपके businesses नहीं होंगे या इंडस्ट्री नहीं होगी, आप उसको digitization पे कैसे जाएंगे ना? आप कह रहे हैं कि देखिए दुनिया में जो मेजर एक्सपोर्टिंग कंट्रीज हैं, आप किसी को भी उठा लें, सिवाय एक दो मुल्क के आप हटा के, सारी की जो एक्सपोर्ट है वो तो सारी कमोडिटी ड्रिवन है जी. मतलब कतर क्या कर रहा है, वो एलएनजी एक्सपोर्ट कर रहा है, कमोडिटी बिजनेस है. इंडोनेशिया क्या करता है, वो कोल एक्सपोर्ट करता है, वो बाकी चीजें बेसिक कमोडिटीज, फूड है, मतलब पाम ऑयल है. मलेशिया क्या करता है, पाम ऑयल एक्सपोर्ट करता है. कमोडिटी, देखिए कमोडिटी ही है जो आपको एक फॉरेन एक्सचेंज रेवेन्यू दे सकती है. आप आज इंडस्ट्री में इतने पीछे चले गए हैं, मतलब आप कार इंडस्ट्री में आप कम्पीट नहीं कर सकते, मोबाइल फोन में आप कम्पीट नहीं कर सकते, आप बाकी एरियाज में कम्पीट नहीं कर सकते. तो वो इसलिए भी कम्पीट नहीं कर सकते आपके रॉ मटेरियल नहीं है ना. आप एक चीज को बनाने के लिए, गाड़ी बनाने के लिए हम कहते हैं कि हमने 60% लोकलाइजेशन कर दी है, बट 60% का एक्चुअल लोकलाइजेशन जो वो 15% है. वो इससे 15% है कि उसका 80% रॉ मटेरियल इम्पोर्टेड है. आपने गाड़ी के शीशे बनाने तो ग्लास इंपोर्टेड है, उसकी कटाई करके आप कहते हैं मैंने लोकलाइज कर दिया. आपने सीट्स बनानी है, आपने कहा कि इसके जितने भी केमिकल्स हैं वो आपने इंपोर्ट कर लिया, आपने कहा कि मैंने सीट बना ली. तो मेजर कंपोनेंट जो है वो तो आपका इंपोर्टेड रॉ मटेरियल है. तो जो इंडस्ट्री जिसकी आप बात करें वो कंपैरेटिव हो गए, और जो आगे की तरफ चल के, बिकॉज इन्होंने अपने पहले बेसिक इंडस्ट्रीज को सेट किया, उससे इन्होंने उसको रैंप अप करके फिर आगे वैल्यू एडिशन की तरफ चले गए वो. तो जब आपके पास रॉ मटेरियल नहीं है तो आप बेसिक वैल्यू एडिशन कहाँ से करेंगे? और अगर आप वैल्यू एडिशन कर लेंगे तो आपकी जो एनर्जी कॉस्ट है पाकिस्तान में, जो आपकी टैक्सेशन कॉस्ट है पाकिस्तान के अंदर, जो कॉस्ट ऑफ डूइंग बिजनेस है, आप कंपैरेटिव भी नहीं रहते बाद में. तो समझने की बात यह है कि कमोडिटी ही से जो है वो फॉरेन एक्सचेंज अर्न होता है. और बड़ी इकोनॉमी जो बड़े है, मतलब चाइना को आप छोड़ दें, चाइना ने पिछले 30-40 सालों में बैठ के अपने आप को पूरा इवॉल्व किया, बिकॉज उन्होंने देखा कि यार हमारे पास कोई बेसिक कमोडिटी नहीं एक्सपोर्ट करने के लिए, तो अनलेस वी डोंट गो इनटू दैट वैल्यू एडिशन, तो उन्होंने क्या किया, सारी बेसिक इंडस्ट्रीज लगा दी. दुनिया का केमिकल चाइना से आता है, दुनिया की जो रॉ मटेरियल्स है वो चाइना से आ रहे होते हैं, बिकॉज उन्होंने वो अपने आप की वो इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन करके इन्होंने उस चीज़ को एक मजबूत किया, और उसके बाद में वो आगे वैल्यू एडिशन की तरफ चले गए. तो आई थिंक एक मिथ है कि बेसिक कमोडिटी एक्सपोर्ट करना जो है वो ठीक नहीं है. आई थिंक आप जब बच्चा पैदा होता है ना, वो पहले भी चलता है, वो पहले चलता है, फिर टॉडलर बनता है, फिर चलता है, थोड़ा आगे चलता है, फिर लौटता है. इसी तरीके से एक इंडस्ट्री का एक इवॉल्व होती है,
मतलब स्टेप बाय स्टेप चले. ठीक है जी. Gonzalo from the World Bank, go ahead.
Thank you very much. I'm Gonzalo Varela from the World Bank. This was a very insightful presentation. I only understood about half of it because I don't speak Urdu, unfortunately. But from what I understood, what it was really music to my ears, as Nadeem said that it was for his, was the fact that you underlined how the subsidy schemes, the complexity of the subsidy schemes in place, and the lack of market orientation of the economy are a problem for Pakistan growing fast and growing sustainably, and I completely agree with that. What I wanted to understand a little bit better is how can we circle that with the fact that, for example, right now, industrialists are lobbying for subsidies on energy. So that's just one example. But if you look at the export financing scheme, that is a very generous credit subsidy is very much captured by large exporters. The same thing with the LTL, very much captured by large exporters in the textile sector. So how do we break free of that system, of that complexity in the subsidy schemes, when you have this very difficult, perhaps capture is not the right word, but you know, very intense lobbying from industries to keep securing these subsidies? How do we break free from that vicious circle?
Okay. I think when you talk about energy subsidy, actually, you know, what we tell to government, you know, that, you know, the way that the different slabs are being worked out for different sectors, you know. So subsidy is given to fertilizer, subsidy is given to domestic consumer. So, and what they do is, you know, they charge higher tariff to us to cross-subsidize the other sector. So our question to the government is always, you know, that if you want to give subsidy, don't cross-subsidize. You give directly from your budget. So when you cross-subsidize, you know, you make tariffs so high, you know, for other industries that we cannot compete globally or regionally with our neighboring countries, you know. So we said that if you want to cross-subsidize, then of course, then you need to give us the real cost, you know. And what we ask is the real cost, not a subsidized cost. I think there's a lot of misperception among the people, you know, that we ask for subsidy. We don't ask for subsidy. We say, give us a real cost. We don't want subsidy. But if you are cross-subsidizing any industry because of that, we cannot pay for that. Number one. Number two, you know, you said DLTL, it doesn't exist anymore. You know, DLTL has been finished since this financial year, so there is no DLTL on any exports from Pakistan. Number three, you know, when you have high electricity tariff, because if government has made wrong decision, you know, by setting up these large power plants based on imported fuel and not looking at the long-term pros and cons, you know, that today you have given electricity, you know, and has met the shortage, but at what cost? At the cost of 20 cents, 30 cents a kilowatt hour, where our neighboring countries are giving and producing power at 10 cents per kilowatt hour. We cannot pay for your, you know, we cannot pay for your line losses. We cannot pay for your circular debt, you know. This is something which is administrative problem, and you don't want to resolve it. We are not, industry cannot pay for your inefficiencies, you know. So the whole idea, you know, when we talk about subsidy is actually not a subsidy. We always talk about the real cost, and industry cannot bear the cost of inefficiency and cross-subsidization of different sectors.
Sir, I have a question.
Last question, ji. Last question. Sab has to go. Okay.
My name is SNHXZ. I am faculty at BUITEMS. Your industry both imports gas and limestone. Balochistan is abundant with both. But the cement industry never came to Balochistan. Very recently, DG Cement has a plant. So what kept you out of Balochistan for so many years? And we still have those resources that your industry needs.
Yeah, I think there are two reasons, you know, for people not coming in Balochistan in cement industry. A, there is no captive, there is not a very large consumption of cement in Balochistan. And transportation is one of the major costs, you know, for transporting cement from one city to the other. So people would like to go and set up factories, you know, near to the marketplace, so their transportation cost is lower, and you know, it's affordable. Balochistan has absolutely a lot of limestone reserves, you know, but at the same time, the captive consumption of I don't have the exact data of what is the market size of Balochistan for cement consumption, but I'm sure it's very, very low, you know. So the major consumption is in Punjab, followed by Sindh, and then KPK. You know, Balochistan comes right at the bottom of the consumption, per capita consumption in cement. So as I said, you know, unless we don't start harnessing the development of Balochistan, you know, and start bringing at par with other provinces, I think a lot of industry will shy away from coming into Balochistan because of a lesser demand, you know, in that particular province, you know. Once the growth of the province starts to happen, you will see automatically, you know, industry, you know, also coming in that particular province and start setting up their requirements.
you very much. I know you have to go to another meeting. Thank you very much for giving us your time. We will call on you from time to time because I think it's very important for us to learn from industry what you people think and how we can interact with you. So we would love for you to come to, when you come to Islamabad, do give us some time, come over and see us at PIDE. We are very happy to hear from you. Thank you and all the best. Inshallah, we'll be in touch soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Thank you.
Well, I think, sir, I think everyone is tired and let's have a break for lunch. The lunch is ready. Please join us.
Recording stopped.